What do you make of this? Because to British people, we'll get into this. This is a completely alien system, and it's quite hard for people to understand. So tell us, what do you make of the decision, first of all?
Well, of course, America and Britain are a little different with the reverence to the king and all. The Supreme Court decision was actually, pretty straightforward, and it didn't change much, in my opinion, from what already existed, which was some degree of immunity for the president of the United States, or the immunity within the actions that the president's taking for the job of the president of the United States. Of course, President Obama had to take that action in some cases where he believed that America was threatened. And we had some unprecedented action, including killing an American citizen overseas. That immunity exists for the leader to make the decisions that they must make to keep America safe. That was reiterated in this. And then it said, of course, that the president does not have absolute immunity for just anything that he wants to do, which would apply to a lot of January 6th because it's political. And even within the office, when I was there at the White House, it's very different when you're campaigning versus when you're actually working as the official in the office. And so those two things are very different. And I think the court laid that out today.
So do you think, because this boils down to the question of what is an official act of a president,
Yeah.
doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
And do you think that will be then clear? Because Trump is saying this is great news for the prosecutions against him. This, at the very least, delays this to all past the election anyway. So that's good news for him on a timing point of view. But the feeling is that some of these cases about how he behaved in Georgia, how he behaved on January the 6th, some parts of that will come within the ambit of the idea of the official behavior of the presidency. Does this just kick this back to a lower court to decide what's official and what is not official?
Exactly. And it's intentional, right? It is by design that this process has lots of checks and balances. I thought that, obviously I'm a Democrat. I worked with Democrats, but I was a little surprised by the alarmist side of the, of course, dissent. Yes, it would be very troubling, and we don't want to see it tested, this immunity, when you apply it to other things. But courts are going to now have to determine what is official, what is not official. And so that president does not have absolute immunity to do whatever they want. And you're seeing really troubling signs over here because you're seeing some Democrats say, well, President Biden then could drone Trump. And it's just like, oh my God, what has our politics become here, you guys? It's troubling. But yeah, it was a little bit of both sides kind of taking this. Trump took a victory lap, which is kind of under a false pretense because he hasn't actually won anything. And you had Biden come out and probably use this to, show America that he could deliver an address in the evening after what was a really disappointing debate performance for all of us who are Democrats and wanted him to do very well.
Is that just on that tangent? Is that a legitimate concern for you? Because this notion of in the daytime between 10 and 4, Biden seems semi-capable, and then as night falls, he struggles. Do you believe that is a narrative that seems to exist? Is that true, do you think?
Oh my gosh. It's like, I want a president who's lucid every moment.
Yeah.
I don't think that's too much for the American people to ask. It is the amount.
I mean, you were there with Obama. This must make you crazy because
it's making me crazy.
He's the very definition of lucidity, Obama, it strikes me.
Yeah.
And then you've now got this guy in his 80s who doesn't seem up to it.
Well, and it's interesting because you see, a lot of us worked with him when he was vice president. And, I think this call for loyalty, when we're a democracy where we fought to have these rights to say whatever it is that we believe, that's a value that's very true to us. So we're going to probably keep saying what we believe. And you saw the Biden family, somehow the reports came out that they were somehow blaming the team that prepared Biden. But it was not the team who prepared Biden, who forgot he was talking about abortion and instead went into the death of a woman who was killed by someone who was undocumented. I mean, that's just like, this is, it's not fair to the American people that these are our two choices, that you've got someone who, look, January 6th was awful. It was a stain on our democracy, on our republic. It should be prosecuted. And the other side, you've got someone who can't put together a sentence and explain why it is so terrible and tragic for America unless there's a teleprompter.
But the argument this puts me was that this is the problem of the patronage system a little bit, in that the people around Biden all owe their jobs to Biden. They won't get jobs in a new administration, even in a new Democrat administration. There's a feeling the first lady might like being first lady, and she won't be first lady in a different Democrat administration. So actually the people around him, it's not in their interest to say, this is embarrassing. Let's find someone who go there and kick Trump's ass. Let's go and find someone. You're not that man. Let's find someone who can do that.
I remember working with President Obama, and I remember him saying he wanted to stand for the things he believed in, even if he lost the job. And that was the kind of leader who I absolutely adored working with. That's the kind of leader I want to see for America, especially right now, especially when Donald Trump is testing our institutions. I believe that that's the kind of leader that we should have as Democrats. It pains me to see what I would say is Trump-like behavior from these staffers, from the folks around Biden who are essentially encouraging him to run again, even though he can't put together a sentence.
It's so interesting what you're saying. One of the judges did say that Trump, how far are we expected to take this, Joanna, I suppose is the question. There is this reference that could Trump order the assassination of the Speaker of the House as president and be immune? That was raised in one of the decisions. Is this the sort of hysteria you're talking about, or is there something that's being advanced here? You mentioned the king at the beginning, and the way it's being reported in this country is you got rid of King George and you're trying to create King Donald. How much is that hysteria? Let's finish on that idea, because I think it's striking to many people.
Well, and that's what I've been debating a lot myself today, because none of us who believe in democracy should want a leader to test their immunity. It should be in the interest of the American people that they take any action, and it should be very limited in scope. And I guess, when you have leaders who are willing to walk to the edge, that will test us. We threw off the system of having kings in this country. And, I think that that's my worry with this overreaction, is that you actually have so many people then going to their sides, because you have basically Democrats screaming, oh my God, he could do these terrible things, which would be tested in the courts. We know that. And then you have Republicans, essentially wanting to walk up to the edge, which, if they want to walk up to the edge, just know that that puts your political opponent in that same spot with that same immunity. So, there's actually, it was a very nothing burger of a of a ruling, in my humble opinion, because we haven't seen it actually be enforced.
What it means.
Exactly.
But the fear is, I suppose, and we'll have to end it here, but Donald Trump, if he gets elected, there's no third term. So the argument is, if you think he'll be unshackled, he will really be going to the edge, because he's kind of constitutionally able to go further to the edge, because he doesn't have to worry about re-election. And I guess that's the fear, isn't it? That this is a man who will take what is ever given to him and beyond. Does the door edge a little more open in that regard? I suspect
it seems a little bit more open. And you've got a crazy old man who's willing to test that thesis. I fear for that. I don't want that. But in order for us to stop that as Democrats, I would say we're going to have the opponent who is in a position of not just looking like the other crazy old man. And right
Yeah.
now, we're in some tough times here in the US. I'm very excited to learn what happens with your election. Of course, much shorter time frame for your election. We're just going to keep going longer and longer on this election.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, we've been beating ourselves up in this country about the quality of our political discourse, and we've had our leaders debating. And there was this, honestly, there was, Joanna, this sort of, not entirely correctly, and look, we've got huge problems in this country, but there was a slight sigh of relief when we saw the debate over there, where we thought, whatever you might think of Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, they're actually in possession of their faculties.
Yes.
They're not trying to do anything extra constitutional. They are just two men who you can dislike. And you could say, there was actually a question in one of our debates saying, are you really as good as we could possibly have? But that's the case in America. And just finally, do you think the Democrats need someone
Yes.
else? They need not a crazy old man to beat the crazy
Yes.
old man.
I think that Biden should step aside. I watched that
And will he?
debate performance, and there's no excuse. There's no, oh, I was sick, but then I'm going to go shake hands with a bunch of people at Waffle House, which is so confusing. There's no, like, I was over prepared by my aides. They told me too much. Like, it was really an embarrassment for the Democratic Party. And it doesn't leave the legacy that Joe Biden deserves.